sexuality. That is demented. Like that, imagine taking the feeling that anyone might have when they're like, gosh, maybe we should prosecute police officers who, gun down unarmed people. Like taking that and being like, you're demented. Oh, empathy makes you crazy. Like,
I don't get it, yeah. And by the way, just for the facts, they did lose to Sweden, and then they beat New Zealand 6-1.
Sure.
Like that team won the World Cup title in 2019 for the 4th time.
Yep.
What are you talking about? Wokeism makes you lose. Like they don't care about anything. They certainly don't care about women's sports. But that said, I do. So let's talk about some of them. So some good news coming out of the Olympics. I've been actually watching quite a bit of it. I know you don't believe that because I don't generally watch sports, but I like the Olympics. I like watching sports I don't normally watch, and I just like the people being happy. I saw this, and this blew me away. The Philippines have competed in every edition of the Olympics since its debut in the 1924 edition, except for the boycott in 1980. After 97 years, the Philippines finally won their first ever gold medal. Hidalin Diaz wins it in weightlifting. And I saw this picture going around on Twitter. It's been almost a century of the Philippines. They just got their first gold medal. Can you imagine how she feels? That is awesome. I also saw no US man or woman has ever won a gold in the foil in fencing. And Lee Kiefer, I believe her name is, won. And there's this article, the doctor will stab you now because, in a lot of sports, you have to have a regular job. So she's a doctor and a 3-time Olympian, even though she looks like she's 18 or whatever. She's been in the Olympics 3 times. First ever gold in the foil for an American. That's just awesome. I also saw a Florida teenager won the first ever US gold for women's taekwondo in history. That's Anastasia Zolotic on Sunday. So I think it's the main reason I like watching the Olympics. I just like imagining myself in their position. Like so often nothing works out the way it's supposed to. Like you don't get what you deserve. But like when you win after like a lifetime of working for it, I just like that. It's like the universe is working the way it's supposed to. And granted, I understand that every one of these people beat somebody and they didn't win. I get that, but I just like it. I like it, Francesca. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, and also, I do think that, like the excellence in the sport rises above, et cetera, but it's not lost on me that a lot of these young gold medalists and medalists in general that are representing Team America are women and people of color. Right.
Yeah.
And we saw that in the Winter Olympics, right? We had like an incredibly diverse ski team with like a lot of Asian Americans on it. And like, it is not woke to point that out. It's wonderful. It is a representation of the diversity of this country. And man, I wish that right wingers would start to celebrate that rather than think that somehow that is dividing us.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, people in the chat are mentioning Ahmed Hafnaoui, an 18-year-old Tunisian athlete. I was watching that race. That was amazing too. Yeah, I like the Olympics. I can't wait to watch more. I can't wait to watch gymnastics. I know it's been going on. I missed it, but anyway, that's all the time we have for now. Francesca, as always, great to have you here. We're gonna be recording our top 10 list in just a few, but thank you for joining us for the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And of course, in just a little bit, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie and Jayar Jackson. What a team up. That'll be coming up in just a few. So head to youtube.com/indisputable_TYT. For those of you who don't know, coming up on Thursday is our live members Q&A for tier 3 members on YouTube. So if you'd like to participate, you become a tier 3 member or upgrade your membership, and we'll chit chat about whatever you want. But until then, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. I'll see you soon.
Welcome to Indisputable. It is Make It Happen Monday. We got a lot happening on this Monday. We have a full show. I got none other than the big homie, the legendary Jayar Jackson, TYT senior producer and man of many, many talents on the program today. Also, we have in the bullpen, debating me will be Brad Polumbo. Brad Polumbo is with feed.org, National Review contributor, and we're going to talk about formation of government. He's a big capitalism guy, and he believes that capitalism is close to Jesus himself. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my first story. The biggest gang investigation in the history of Georgia, a southern state, yielded over 80 indictments, 77 of them white supremacist. They are called the Ghostface Gangsters, okay? Now, they are reluctant to call them white supremacist gangs. They keep using terminology like gangsters and street gang. However, these are white supremacist, and this is in fact a white supremacist gang. Here are the pictures. You see them? Take a good look at them. This is the single largest gang investigation in Georgia. That's how local and state officials are describing Operation Kibosh, led by Richmond County Sheriff's Office against Ghostface Gangsters criminal street gang. Police say 77 of them are part of the Ghostface Gangsters. It's one of the fastest growing gangs in the country, made up of mostly white supremacists. The crimes range from attempted murder, drug trafficking, to aggravated assault to an officer. Now, who led that investigation? This guy, the sheriff of Richmond County, Sheriff Richard Roundtree. Now, let me take you back to something quite interesting. Because when you look up this story, you will see a reluctance to show their pictures by many of these publications. They are also not providing their names in many of these publications, talking about the biggest gang investigation in the history of Georgia. And they're not calling them a white supremacist gang, even though they are. Now, let me tell you why it's important to call a thing a thing. If we were talking about the Crips, they would tell you this is the Crips gang. If we were talking about Piru Bloods, they would tell you this is about Piru Bloods and it is the street gang. If this was about gangster disciples, they would tell you this is about gangster disciples. They will provide context. Here's the context here. These are white supremacists. That's an important context. White supremacist. So while many would like you to believe that the face of gangster life or the face of gangster violence and gangster activity is only relegated to those with black and brown skin, let's be very clear. The most notorious gang ever in the United States of America has always been and will forever be the KKK. That's a gang too. So here's what we decided to do on Indisputable. Since a lot of these publications have been reluctant to tell you exactly who they are and to show you their face and their name, we got a little something for you. Here it is. You will notice that some of them look quite normal and some of them do not. You'll also notice a lot of females who are part of this gang. A lot of young females are members of this white supremacist gang. Now, obviously, they have been charged. All of this is alleged until conviction. But wow, look at the number of white females who are members of this white supremacist gang. Now, I had a conversation with another gang expert about this because I noticed when there's a big gang bust of a black street gang, you don't see as many women as you do in this bust. And he said something quite interesting to me. He said for them, this is very generational. That the gang activity is extremely generational. And they need women, they need these particular gang members to raise the children into the ideology. And what you see as a difference with a lot of the black street gangs in particular is that they work very hard to isolate their children from that same life. They try very hard to make sure that their children do not experience that same journey. Not so in many of these white supremacist gangs. They see it as a generational connection. The investigation yielded indictments against 77 gang members. This investigation was initiated based on the gang's affiliation with high levels of drug distribution and violent crimes. Sheriff Richard Roundtree said at a news conference Friday announcing the arrest and indictments. We know that attacking criminal organizations at the core is the most effective way to remove lawless street gang members from our society and have the greatest impact on gang prosecution. Once again, they're not saying white supremacist. I'm providing the context for you. The gang is involved in criminal cases throughout Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and deep into the Georgia Department of Corrections, according to the sheriff's office. The ghost-faced gangsters are trying to expand into neighboring states and are considered the fastest growing white gang in the country. Jayar, how do you see this, brother?
Well, I mean, I guess it goes along with what we've always seen. And as you pointed out in so many different ways here, we talk about how the context is how they're pointing out who these folks are and really where they came from and how little reporting there really is around that. Names, faces, pointing out who they really are and where their ideology comes from. Now, there's reason for that. It's because everyone gets brainwashed. And I'm talking across the board in the country. Black folks will generally may think, oh my God, these black gangs, they're everywhere. Oh my God, look, the Crips and the Bloods, like we hear about the name and it's supposed to incite fear. We live in LA, and if as the gentrification of different parts of the city come, there's people that are, they say it to my face. I got friends that when I lived in Inglewood, they would come over, this is 2007. They'd come over and be like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because there's this automatic thing in the back of people's heads that, oh my God, I'm in an area where people that I think are afraid, are scary live. But as they come into move, it's suddenly not as scary because you're taking over the area, taking over resources, and really coming into your own knowledge, your neighborhood. So it's a lot less threatening. It's the same neighborhood you were afraid of before. Now, only reason I bring that up is because the reporting for things like this, it just goes across the board that, oh, these are just white folks that are trying to do something. Maybe they're patriots. They're trying to defend their country. They're afraid of what's happening in our country, which then as you see things like the indoctrination of their children, the number of women that are involved in this. The basis behind these gangs is more of, let's teach our kids our values of racism that have been carried throughout the country. When it comes to a lot of black gangs, it's survival that these began because of the oppression, because of the situations they're put in different neighborhoods. And then many kids felt, oh, I need some kind of protection. Oh my God, I need to join this situation or this group. And whatever comes with that, the illegal things that come with that just comes with it because what are my other options? There are options for these folks. Yeah. These folks, they chose this route when they could have had another option. That's the difference you'll see a lot of times with these folks. Now, I'm sorry, I've rambled for a while, but there's a couple of thoughts I also had still. The largest terror organizations in the country have been deemed by the Department of Justice and law enforcement agencies are these white supremacist terrorist groups. That's where they've been for the past several years, if not forever. It's just we decided to say it for real now. But if we report it as such every time, it might actually permeate a couple of people's brains for them to realize what the situation is here. It's why you have Donald Trump, when he was in office, can walk up and say, oh, Charlottesville, there's good people on both sides. He can say that because he knows there's enough people that have been brainwashed to believe it. And he doesn't have to take any political hit over it because that was his base.
Wow, very well said, man. Great points. And I will say this to one of the points you made. As a teenager, man, I was a foster child. I was also in a gang. I was a gangster disciple. I've been a gang deprogrammer for years. I went around the country, continue to do that work. Over 90% of the time, when somebody calls me to say, I need you to help these young people, I need your deprogramming expertise, it's the parents. It's the parents who are calling. And some of those parents were caught up in gang life themselves. So you don't see the generational connection. They're trying to disconnect from that sort of life because they were part of those gangs and gangster affected or gang affiliated because of necessity and atmospheric conditions, etc. These individuals are utilizing it obviously as a pretext to commit violence against those who do not think nor look like them. It's quite fascinating that right now, the story that we're talking about, it is still really not national news. And it is one of the largest gang busts in the history of America and the largest in the history of the state of Georgia.
You would think this is something that we're supposed to celebrate because when law enforcement does their job, we celebrate it, right? Oh my God, they got the bad guys. Maybe fewer people will be affected. Now, what makes people so scared of street gangs? Things like marijuana distribution, drug possession, drug dealing, aggravated assault, murder, attempted murder, trafficking of folks. I'm just reading from the list of the things that this gang is doing, just to point that out. Those several things I just read, by the way, this laundry list, I can't read it all. I just read 5 or 6 of them. Yep. It's on the list of the things that they're being charged with. Yep. So why aren't we afraid of them the same way? Just ask yourself that question. If you see these guys walking down the street, we're gonna get to drug dealing stories later in this story. Fake drug dealing stories, what people are afraid of happening in the neighborhoods. Are you afraid of them doing it? Of all these people that we just showed pictures of. If you see them leaning into a car and maybe sticking something in their pocket, are you running up on them?
Yeah. Let me shift gears. This was quite insane, and you know it would never happen the other way around. Black woman traveling with adoptive white sister is accused of human sex trafficking. This had to be humiliating, traumatic. This black woman was accused of trafficking her own adoptive younger sister during a trip to Texas, okay? When 21-year-old Lakey Janae Bailey, who is black, traveled with her adoptive sister Olivia, who's 4 years of age, from Denver to Dallas on July 20th. Authorities were waiting for them inside the gate by the time they landed at Dallas Fort Worth International Airport. Now let me pause there just for a moment. A black female traveling with a 4-year-old white child. That is your racist pretext right there. Because if this would have been any other combination, you do not have the authorities waiting for you at the airport. Okay, let me continue. Bailey told Denver 7 News that the officers approached her and asked if they could talk. One officer turned to Olivia, the child, which is, by the way, completely unlawful, and asked how Bailey was related to her and how Bailey's mother was related to her. Once again, it is the racial context that provided the racist conclusion. As it turns out, passengers on the Frontier Airlines flight had raised concerns about human trafficking to staff on the flight, and the airline had requested that officers to respond when the plane landed. In order to confirm pieces of information, officers spoke with Bailey's mother, with the social worker, and with the person who arrived to pick them up from the airport. Bailey said that people in the airport were watching and whispering as the questioning continued. This had to be so dehumanizing. This devalues your worth in that moment, teaching a horrible lesson to this 4-year-old, but maybe a lesson she needs to learn. Too early to learn it, yes. Way too early to learn that lesson. But this is the society that we live in today. It goes on. When speaking with Denver 7 News, Bailey said, and I quote, "If the roles were changed and it was a white person walking off the plane with a black person, like a black child, I feel like things would be different." No, ma'am, don't feel like it, know it. No, things would be different. They will be completely different. None of that would have ever happened to you if the roles were reversed. Frontier Airlines provided this statement to Denver 7 News. Let's put that statement up. A concern was raised during the flight by another passenger who was sitting near the woman and child and suspected human trafficking. That passenger approached the flight crew with those concerns and subsequently completed a written report during the flight to document her observations. The captain was notified and felt an obligation to report the matter. Air travel is one of the most common means of human trafficking. Race played no part in the actions of the flight crew, who were following established protocols. Here's a picture of the sisters together. They're sisters, damn it. I'm a foster kid, I understand this. All right, that's family. I don't care what anybody says, that's family right there. 100% family. And this happened to that family. Now, they are considering filing the lawsuit. I hope they move forward with it. Jayar, how do you see this story?
Yeah, if you think about the look of this, because I've seen things like this before, where say an older person is with a kid and they are a completely different race, you may notice it. It's something that people notice, just because in this country, as much as we call this a melting pot and a group of folks that have all come together to create this American experience, we're extraordinarily divided. So when you see something that looks out of place like that, like, oh, it's not really likely you'll see a black woman with a young white child. It's just you don't see it. And you may notice it. Now, if you start observing it, as some of the passengers on this Frontier Airlines flight decided to observe, what did they observe? Because I've observed people before. Sometimes I see kids that I think may potentially be in danger. And it's not necessarily based off of the fact that the person is a different race that's around them. I saw it before. So I observed it. After I observed it, I went, oh, that's fine. So what did they observe happening between this 21-year-old woman and her 4-year-old sister? They didn't report it. They told us that they wrote a full written report to Frontier Airlines. Because Frontier Airlines told us what the full written report was, because what they did tell us was that it had no basis in race. So if it had no basis in race, what was it based in? Did you tell us that part yet? I mean, it's always an ongoing thing. Give us the information you'd like to give us, and then we're supposed to believe the rest. You only have to prove to us what exonerates you of any wrongdoing. But after we need to find out the full story, because you have this transparency thing that people like to say they're involved in. But when we see what it looks like, go ahead and dispel it to us then. Because we saw what it looks like, and maybe there's some overzealous passengers, and you need to explain to them that, oh, yeah, we hear your concerns, but we're not gonna harass this young woman and her little sister. And again, I wanna point out as I stop my rambling, this is a 21-year-old woman. Keep that in your brains when we see this and you imagine, oh, this grown woman had this young little sister and she got asked about it. We just want to check it out and make sure everything is fine. When you're 21 years old and you're traveling with your little sister, does that make you feel comfortable? When you get off the next flight, are you concerned about whether or not wherever else you may go with your sister? They just got back to wherever they're going. What if they go to lunch? Is the waiter then at the next restaurant gonna say, oh, I saw this black woman with this 4-year-old white girl, call the cops? She has to be concerned about this constantly now. And 21 years old is not an old person. Right. It's someone that's still getting new life experiences and still learning the way society is gonna treat them. And this is never gonna leave her.
And shame on Frontier for not correcting it in the post narrative. That statement is a bunch of bunk. And let me explain why. They make an affirmative conclusion about the agenda of the passenger. They say this was not based on race. If you're saying that holistically, you're also making the conclusion for the passenger that reported it. You aren't able to tell us what was it in the report that the passenger observed that made this passenger believe this was a criminal action. So let's get to that point. If it's a report, that means you can quote it for us. You don't have to reveal the identity of the passenger if there was some level of anonymity agreed to, but you can give us the quote. You can say, look at this quote. This quote is so disturbing that it caused individuals who were employed at Frontier to overreact. Okay, put that in the report. But all we know is that this does not happen when there's a white female and a white child to have authorities waiting for you at the airport. Just doesn't happen. Okay, doesn't happen. We got more on the other side. Stick and stay is indisputable.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories. Gee, I wonder why we didn't get $15 minimum wage. Because they're all raising money from the guys who don't want to increase the minimum wage.
And we play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The Republicans say we will serve our corporate masters at all costs, including killing democracy, yet here we are. Where else do you hear that? You hear that on NBC, on ABC, on CBS? You hear it nowhere.
They don't want to talk about money in politics because it's really hard to pass judgment when your media organization is funded by fossil fuel companies.
The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, the defense contractors, the Wall Street, or the big pharma. And we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed.
The president labeled him a son of a bitch.
I don't think it's good to be a distraction to your team.
To stand proudly for the national anthem.
You know, some of these people need to move to another country.
Well, you shouldn't be playing, you shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country.
The president is put in place to amplify the racists in this country.
Black men and boys are killed at an exponentially higher rate than white men and boys, as outlined by PBS. Black people are most likely to be killed by police, found mappingpoliceviolence.org. Personally, my biggest gripe is not saying how sports and politics have been attached at the hip. From the jockey syndrome, to the Negro Leagues, to Tommy Smith and John Carlos, Muhammad Ali, to modern day and everything in between. This is not an escape. It is a reflection of reality and a reflection of the times.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Welcome back to Indisputable. We have a lot of viewer comments. Let me get to as many as I possibly can. TYT member Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, says, as one of the older fans of TYT, can I get a happy birthday? Just turned 43 30 years ago. Happy birthday. Thank you so much for being a remarkable ally to the program. YouTube, super chat. Cara Venus, thanks for being you, and thank you for being you as well. Linda, thank you for your commentary, Dr. Rashad. Keep speaking on our issues. Thank you. Another name says, I freaking love JR. TYT has many great recurring guests, but he takes the cake in my book.
Oh,
always got fans, brother. That's good stuff. R King 1 Garcia, I'm white and used to babysit a biracial child. When I took her to the grocery store with me, people thought she was my grandchild. Yep, they gave you the benefit of the doubt, right? Kelly Williams, thank you so much. About the Georgia gang, David Lee says the hills have eyes looking people. Okay.
These are the white supremacists. The hills have eyes. I just found it. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. They all did meth and tried to form the Avengers. Michael Maxim says the police at airports should be ashamed. They should. Lula C, this happened with a black man babysitting white kids, got pulled over by cops. It did, actually. Right. I don't know if you're referring to the same story, but it happened in Atlanta. It happened in Atlanta as well. Georgia gang Twitch, my Twitch people. Mary Animal says, that's supposed to be the cream of the ethnic crop? Yikes. Yeah. Okay. Tahira, I don't know. Tahira Kathleen sued their I
think that's coming.
That's coming. Come on now, you know it's coming. All right, lawyers are probably breaking all the bar rules and calling them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I wish Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday?
I feel free. Back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African American man threatening my life.
I was just giving you a heads up.
Ma'am, you see what this is? Hair extension.
Why are you doing it here?
Because I can. It's a public park. It's a public park. Do you own the park? Can people pick up here? It's just a pickup.
Okay, it looks like a drug deal.
I don't care what it looks like. Call the police. I pay $50,000 in taxes. I pay my mortgage.
This is how. Do it at your house.
Lady,
if that's your house, do it at your house.
If there's a problem, tell someone.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was trying to give you a heads up.
Give a heads up.
Okay,
Thank you.
It looks like a drug deal. People don't go around every day. People parking here.
I'm telling you, did you not see what I just made?
You know what? I'm just saying.
I have a legit business. I pay $50,000 in taxes. Federal personal.
And people are talking about the girl on the bike who's stealing drugs. I don't want to involve police on people.
What do you want me to do? Stop doing my business?
Well, I would like you to not do it here.
Ma'am,
I'm aware it's a public park.
I'm just selling.
Okay, and if they call the police on you, I tried.
Okay, tell me.
Okay, I tried. Okay, I tried.
Karen, sit your lying ass down. Nobody in that neighborhood is telling everyone else they're dealing drugs here. That's just you. That's you. And I hate that we're in this position many times in the black community where we have to explain our very existence or feel like that's the reaction or response required. The woman who has been accused of dealing drugs, even though she was not, she lives in the community. She said, I pay $50,000 a year in taxes. She pointed to her address. She should not have had to do any of that at all. The white woman is an unnamed white woman, is captured on a video. She's harassing this black business woman, and they're outside of a local park in her Natomas neighborhood in Sacramento, California. The business is called Mary's Luxury Hair Extensions, is owned and was founded by Mary Paiva. This has been a business since 2015, and I'm trying to give her some positive media here. Let's put up her company. Look at that. Her hair products are in these pictures. The website is maryshairextensions.com. MARIES hairextensions.com. There you go. Now, once again, another Karen, ladies and gentlemen, who has now accused a black business owner of selling drugs. And I like how she tries to make it seem like she's doing this out of concern for the black businesswoman. Oh, I'm just trying to help you. This is what they're saying. And when they call the police, just know I tried. Madam, and I'm talking to our dear sister, if the police are called on you, that's the Karen that did it, okay? She may blame her neighbors, but I promise you, she's the one hitting 911. Jayar, this was clearly just a business deal, handing someone hair or hair products, and it turned into this. Tell me why, brother.
Well, they have to make sure the neighborhood remains what they remembered it to be. And we can't have women on bikes riding through selling drugs. As she pointed out, well, she wanted to give her a warning, a heads up. She didn't want to call the police because she wanted to give her a heads up, because that's something that she's doing as a courtesy to the neighbor. If I thought someone was dealing drugs, I don't give courtesy calls or hey, drug dealer, dealing in my neighborhood that I don't want here. I'm gonna give you a heads up. Either it's a heads up, which kind of making sense, or it's a threat to make sure you know, don't come back around here anymore. Just because the words aren't used doesn't mean it's not the same meaning. So this business owner who was handling her business that day, and as you point out, because this frustrated me, the first thing you said, that she had to tell her multiple times what she's paying in taxes. No, that's none of your damn business what I'm paying in taxes. I know the woman, I know the Karen didn't ask for that information, but we feel sometimes obligated to give some level of legitimacy to our everyday lives to make sure people back off. Like, no, this is my car. Yes, I can't afford to drive a Lexus. Yes, I can. It's like, why do I have to tell you that this is my car? Because I know that you're assuming that's not my car. I know it, you don't have to say it. The way you walk up and go, that's a nice car. Oh, you have that? Do you like it? Why are you asking me all these questions? You see these cars every day. Why are you asking me? So I have to somehow come for this confirmation of my legitimacy just for being here and maybe being successful as much as this woman is. So also, what does a drug deal look like? What does a drug deal look like? Does she know what a drug deal looks like? Because she wants to make sure it's eradicated from her neighborhood. How much does she see it? I've seen drug deals, and they've never been on a street corner with someone hanging out of a window, handing someone something, and then an exchange happening. I've seen drug deals in dorm rooms. I've seen drug deals in campus apartments. I've seen drug deals out in front of campus apartments, because I went to a major university in the middle of Los Angeles, and drug deals happen all the time there because college students are on drugs.
Yeah,
just keep it real.
And man, let's be 100, brother. If this Karen believed that it was actually a drug deal, she would not have approached this woman. She would not have threatened to call the police without threatening to call the police. She would not have given her a warning. Just think about this. Let's say, for the sake of argument, let's go to La La Land for a moment. And let's say in La La Land, this Karen actually believed there was a drug deal. So you mean to tell me that you're going outside giving drug dealers warnings now? I wonder how your neighbors feel about that. You're going outside and saying, hey, I'm snitching on the neighbors. The neighbors think you're selling drugs, Madam Drug Dealer. Just think about how crazy that would be if she actually believed that this person was selling drugs, okay? She's throwing the whole neighborhood under the bus, telling the drug dealer, the neighbors are snitching on you. But see, that's not the case. She never believed this person was a narcotics trafficker. None of those hair extensions looked like cocaine. And I'm sure Karen knows exactly what cocaine looks like. None of this is a reality, okay? What she wants to do, she wants to put this black woman in her place. She wants to regulate the movement, the mobility, the actions and activity of a black female inside of her neighborhood. This is what she wants. That is her ultimate goal. Her aim is that. Her methodology is basically any means necessary. That is the methodology. And if it takes her accusing a simple business encounter and mischaracterizing it as a drug deal, she will do that. Hell, she may even do it to the police at some point in the near future when this woman continues to engage in her legal and protected business.
By the way, one other thing. If you've discovered that you were wrongfully accused this woman of dealing drugs, and you've obviously discovered that that's not what it is, where's the apology?
Come on,
where's the, oh my God, I'm sorry. You know what? I think I got outside of my head because sometimes I just see things. I'm one of those neighborhood watch people because I watch my neighborhood, by the way. I know it's everything happening in my building. I just know it naturally. But if I'm not going accusing people, and by the way, if I did and discovered I was wrong, I don't see how, and we see this happen all the time at the end of these confrontations. There's never a, oh my God, I'm so sorry I disrespected you. I'm not a racist. Trust me, oh my God, the fact that I came off like a racist, I profusely apologize because she still sees her as beneath her. It doesn't matter. If you saw someone as an equal and you've put them in a lowered place and then discovered that you were wrong, you would be profusely apologizing because you see them as someone you don't want to think that you have a lower thoughts of them on. Yeah, and that never comes. It just
unless the whole damn thing was a lie. And you never believed she was dealing dope. Okay, shifting gears. I just love redneck logic, by the way. Capital rioter, all right? Capital terrorist told on himself to Bumble match and gets arrested right afterwards. So his name is Andrew Talkie of Houston. He faces various charges, including assaulting police officers after he admitted his participation in a deadly insurrection to someone he matched with on the dating app Bumble. I kid you not. A criminal complaint was filed against Talkie, alleging that the Houston native attacked police officers on January 6th with a metal whip and pepper spray. The FBI said they received a tip on January 9th from a Bumble user who shared screenshots of their exchange. In it, Talkie said he was pepper sprayed, tear gas, and hit with batons for peacefully standing there. Let's go to the picture. This is part of the surveillance footage, okay? Showing the whip held in his hand. The man came with a weapon, okay? He came with a weapon. Talkie faces charges of obstructing an official proceeding, obstructing police, engaging in disorderly conduct on restricted property, causing disorder at the Capitol, and 2 counts of assaulting officers. He is not the first. Now this is, he is not the first Capitol rioter to be found through Bumble. New Yorker Robert Chapman was arrested in April after also bragging about his participation on the app, eventually changing his Facebook profile picture to a photo from inside the Capitol. Here's this Twiddledee. The other one is Twiddledum. Amazing. So these guys, just think about this, that the irony of it all. They commit acts of domestic terrorism. They go on a dating app. And on this dating app, where I'm sure they're striking out left and right, they say, hey, pay attention to me. I'm a terrorist. and the people on the dating app are like, oh, I got you, terrorist, all right. And they're taking screenshots and sending it over to the FBI, and these guys are getting arrested. Jayar, brother, you got to appreciate the logic here.
Well, yeah, you play it to a certain degree. So you look to maybe get some women based off your criminal activity, because you assume, hey, this is another potential terrorist. We talked about the terrorist group and the street gang in the first block here, about how they had so many women involved. It's like, this is a good opportunity for me to potentially raise my stock, show my street credibility, and make sure she knows that I'm a dangerous criminal, but not totally, because I didn't have a weapon. I just got pepper sprayed, I just got pepper sprayed. Because there's still a little bit in the back of his head thinking, I can't tell the whole story because she might think I'm dangerous the way that I am. So let me just let her know that I'm dangerous adjacent. Just make sure I'm living just on the corner of danger, enough for her to maybe want to date me. The logic just doesn't work out, but they keep doing it. So I remember this one particular moment. This Proud Boy back a few months ago was being interviewed by some lady just on a cell phone. And he said, the reason I show up to these events and do this stuff is because I have nothing else to do. I'm hanging out with folks, it's fun. I'm kind of a loser. He said all this. It's what I need to do to collectively get more people around me. It's a groupthink that these guys, they need it for fun. Imagine having fun by breaking the federal law and running up to the Capitol and then going to brag about later because that's gonna get you more credit with your community. It might make you want to rethink your community.
Exactly, or rethink your game because your game is weak. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
So a lot of progressive office holders are doing something fun. I like fun. They're doing the last 2 years in 2 minutes. Okay, we're gonna try it here. First, I wanna let you guys know about the years before that. Hey, remember we started the Just Democrats here on the Young Turks. It was officially launched on our air, basically by you guys. And then we featured AOC, we featured Cori Bush, and Ro Khanna became the first ever Just Democrat incumbent, all on the Young Turks. Now, the last 2 years have been a spectacular follow-up to that. So let's put the 2 minutes on the clock and do this. Young Turks got to start back in 2002, and I think we've been an important part of the progressive movement ever since. What we mainly do is amplify the progressive voice and candidates out there, and I think we've done a pretty good job. Right now, we're currently #1 most engaged news politics network online, beating CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, all of them. We're #1 in total minutes watched. That means not only the number of people watching, but how long they watch. We just crossed 20 million followers and 500 million monthly views. Now, why? That's because actually the country's progressive. It's 2/3 progressive, and you guys have allowed us to be your voice, and we're incredibly thankful for that. So what did we do with that voice? Well, let's look at 2019. We went all over the country talking to you guys and the candidates. So we were in Miami, we were in Detroit, we were in Houston, and we were in Iowa. In fact, we were all over Iowa. You guys were all over Iowa, and all of the candidates saw you guys. We had wonderful people speaking, like the one and only Nina Turner at our rallies. Bernie Sanders stopped by, Andrew Yang, Elizabeth Warren. We interviewed almost everyone on the campaign trail, with the exception of Biden and Buttigieg. And we held them accountable. We even did a progressive economic pledge, and so many wonderful people signed on to that. Bernie Sanders, Warren, Marianne Williamson, AOC, the entire squad, Justice Democrats, and so many others. Now, on top of all that, we started a show called The Conversation, where we featured so many progressive thinkers, writers, and candidates. And one of the candidates we featured in 2019 was Jamal Bowman. Here comes Jamal Bowman. Then we had an amazing 2020. We hired a climate reporter. Damage Report passed 500,000 subscribers. Young Turks passed 5 million subscribers. We're getting the message out to more and more people. Bernie Sanders comes on in the heat of the primary. He comes on after the election to say what we're gonna do for the future. And then Marie Newman wins. Jamal Bowman wins. Cori Bush wins. And then just when you thought it couldn't get any better, here comes Nina Turner. Hello, somebody. And she's running for Congress, and she comes on the Young Turks first. On election week, we had nearly 2 million hours of viewing. We're #1 destination for progressives. You made all that happen. This is amazing, and thank you for those 2 years. What, I went past 2 minutes? Of course!
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT Lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before.
Welcome back to Indisputable. We got a lot of comments, let's get to it. TYT member, Mother of Cat says, that's so close to where I live, talking about the Karen and drug dealing situation. That's so close to where I live, and it makes me feel sad that it's close to home. There are a lot of small businesses here that make suburbs of Sacramento thrive, exactly. I'm a damn lib says another murder by cop attempt. Karens are noxious gas infecting our atmosphere. Super chat, Karen. Teal Estargo. Business license Karen better be harassing food delivery companies too. That young lady was being a green business owner. She better than me. You're right, she was on that bicycle. She was keeping it green. Specific Gravity says black lady was super nice. She doesn't need to deal with that BS. She was super nice. Like she was, like that was really, really nice. Carissa Main, I want that. Look how gorgeous that hair is. It was beautiful, wasn't it? Tiffany Powell, I worry about this same situation when I make deliveries for my small business. Your worry is legitimate. Potsy Warrior, welcome to tier 2, all right? Joe Anderson, Dr. Richie, you are my new favorite YouTube channel. You are spitting fire every day. Well, thank you, Joe. We aim to do so. Insomnia Noah, yeah, every day. I applaud the business owner for using a bike too, keeping it green. That's right. Mike Gonzalez 2K says, 50 Shades of MAGA, talking about the Bumble dating app. Fat guy named Tiny says Capital rioters are getting turned in by Bumble matches. Meanwhile, I've never gotten a single match on there. I need a better PR rep. All right, what do we have? Okay, all right, we got a couple of more. Daniel says, hey, Dr. Rich, it's always great to see you. I'm so grateful that you hold these Karens accountable for their actions. The only way we can try to get these Karens to stop is to continue to blow their cover and hope that the next Karen thinks twice before she runs her mouth. Thank you for all you do. Love you, Doc. And I love you back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this made my whole damn weekend. A Montana man spotted Tucker Carlson at a local fly fishing shop. He wasted no time letting the Fox News host know exactly how he felt. One of his quotes, "You are the worst human being." Let's just go to the video.
I don't care, man. Dude, you are the worst human being known to mankind. I want you to know that what you have done to this state, to the United States, to everything else in this world. I don't care that your daughter's here. What you've done to people's families, what you have done to everybody else in this system. Son, don't call son one.
If anyone deserves do better medicine, it's Tucker Carlson. Now, obviously, Tucker was in a place where he never expected to run into an adversary like that. Not in a fly fishing shop, oh no. But he did. And here's what I really enjoy about the confrontation. The confrontation was warranted. Here's what I really enjoy about it. You know, all of that smoke that Tucker claims that he's down for, all of that aggression he has in his commentary when he's talking against black people, against Black Lives Matter, when he's being insane in his platform and approach to decent everyday people, when he tweets things that incite others to act in certain ways, when he completely misrepresents COVID leading to the death of people in this country. He doesn't have that same energy in real life, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, he was scared. He was afraid, and that little nervous laugh is coming. That oh hell, I need to figure out how to get up out of here. That nervous laugh is because this is the kind of person he really is, right? He plays a role for those who trust him. He's a character. He's not legit. He's not a true believer. Now let me say this, okay? I don't condone violence at all. I'm not a violent man. I subscribe to an ideology of peace. But I guarantee you, if somebody were to approach me like that, I would not have a Tucker Carlson energy at all. If a Trump supporter approached me like that, I wouldn't be at the fly shop. Let's say I'm in the Nike store and I'm getting my latest Jordans, right? And somebody approached me with that kind of energy, they're going to get that energy back, right? Because that's just who I am. Tucker Carlson, he decided to run away. He fled, and this man told him exactly how he felt. Now, the Post, and I got to read this. His name is Dan Bailey. The man there, his name is Dan Bailey. Dan Bailey posted, and I quote, this was on his IG account. It's not every day you get to tell someone they are the worst person in the world and really mean it. What an This man has killed more people with vaccine misinformation. He has supported extreme racism. He is a fascist and does more to rip this country apart than anyone that calls themselves an American. I detect no lies with this man at all. Jayar?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only thing that I would have a disagreement with Dan Bailey on is in that statement is that, Tucker Carlson is a fascist and all that stuff. Tucker Carlson plays a fascist. Now, he is a racist, but he plays a fascist on TV. He plays this divider on TV. Don't forget, Tucker Carlson was on CNN, on Crossfire back in the day. He's been on every network as this guy who talks about the news. But when he's on a different network, the direction and the general tone and approach to his reporting or his opinion, he'll admit that, has to be completely different. Now, the reason I know this is because he reads from a teleprompter every day. That's the way it is. If you have an opinion, it's fine if you read from a teleprompter, but you have to have that everywhere you go if that's your opinion. If that's your stance, if that's your principle. If someone approaches me and says, hey, Joe, you always talk about Black Lives Matter. You always talk about how racists are taking over the country. And we need to actually learn about the way we do things in this country so we can be better and propel ourselves. I'm ready to talk about those things because I believe them. Now, if you come to Tucker Carlson, we'll talk about his beliefs and how he's dividing the country, whether or not he really believes the vaccines are killing people, whether or not he's planting all these seeds of doubt in people's brains about what's really happening in the country and who the aggressors are, because he always talks about how it's aggressive, these aggressive homeless, these aggressive people, these minorities are coming to get you, then he'd be able to talk about it more in a fishing tackle store rather than saying, calm down, my daughter's with me, calm down, son. I figured as he walked away, I assumed his next thing was gonna be, come on, Dan, it's just me on TV. Because those things happen too. They take the people aside and go, it's just TV. Because that's what it is to them. Real people being affected by your fake BS on TV. That's what it is. And one other thought. Remember back in the day when he said people should go and start checking people for having masks out in public?
Yep.
Because I guarantee you, I'm not gonna guarantee it, but I assume tonight on this show he's gonna bring up how this guy approached him and he's the worst of the worst and look at this leftist of America and taking over and all that stuff he's gonna say to scare his audience more because he's gonna use this as an opportunity to promote himself because that's all he cares about. But he definitely told people to approach folks in public, tell them firmly take down your mask. What's firmly to some of these folks that follow you? What do you think that's gonna translate to? Exactly. He doesn't care. He doesn't care until it's him.
Well said, old Tuckum. Okay, shifting gears, next story. Imagine being pulled over, you're a teenager, they put dogs on you or put a canine on you. You don't end up getting arrested, but the canine bites you multiple times and the cops they have to now tase the canine to get the canine off of you. Well, that's exactly what happened to a teen in Illinois. That teen is recovering after he was bitten by a Granite City police dog during a traffic stop. Here's the young man. Here's the teen. Devondria Williams, that's the teen, okay? Let me give you some details of what happened to this teen. It's quite extreme. Williams was in a vehicle with his cousin when they were pulled over by the police. Williams did not know why they were being stopped and said officers didn't give a reason. Police said they pulled the vehicle over because an individual had been involved with a fight. Williams' cousin, who was driving, corroborated the claim about his involvement in a fight. Williams was in the backseat of the truck, okay? According to Williams, police asked for his information and asked him to get out of the truck. Before Williams could do much, he said an officer grabbed his arm and several other officers pushed him against the truck. Williams explained, and I quote, And then I see the dog out of the corner of my eye. And when the dog bites me, and then the dog bites me. The teen said he was bitten by the dog 4 or 5 times. It gets even deeper. Regina, Canada, who lives close to where the incident took place, saw the police lights and filmed the encounter with her phone. She said the dog was latched onto Williams for 8 or 9 minutes. Repeated commands for the dog to release. Williams can be heard on the recording of the incident. There's more. Ultimately, the dog had to be tased, but only several minutes after latching onto Williams, who suffered injuries to his leg and hand. They had to tase the dog, asked the confused young man. If you have a canine, shouldn't the dog listen to you? Both Williams and Canada confirmed no one was arrested during this stop. We're looking for answers. KMOV4 received the following statement from the captain. The captain name is Gary Brooks. And the captain said, and I quote, during the traffic stop, an individual obstructed the investigation and resisted arrest. They were taken into custody with the assistance of a police canine. This investigation is still ongoing as a result. No further information can be given at this time regarding the matter. Now remember, Mr. Williams, the teenager, and Canada, the person who recorded the incident, said no one resisted arrest, let alone obstructed an investigation at all. But here's what we know. The police dog did not let up whatsoever. Jayar, we know of canines who have been trained, or dogs who have been trained to have specific aggression against people of color. Those have been exposed. We know that it has happened. It seems as if this canine only, now you gotta go back and look at the history. Does this canine have an affinity to African-American suspects? Now you have to ask that question given what has happened here.
I mean, I think even maybe the law may have to ask that question, but the problem is this is the law. But really the last point you brought up about how they're trying to blame him for it with that false information. Oh, he tried to obstruct the situation. They're trying to get to the bottom of whatever it is they're looking for with this fight. Didn't happen. Now, again, it's how many years has it been that we've been having to record police encounters? Every time when we have to record police encounters and we see what the police report would be, if not for the video, is always completely different. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating by always. Most of the time it's completely different. In this case, it 100% was, because we have this thought that, hey, the police made a report, that's official, that's what happened. We just get to believe them, no matter what their track record is. But this unnamed, unknown teenager that we know nothing about, he's automatically lying, because that's just the way it is. Until we see a video of it, until we see the witness that recorded that video say, that's not anything that happened. That's not what I saw, that's not what I recorded. And in fact, they had to tase the dog to get it off him. How come they have no control over their dog? These are highly trained police dogs. They're considered police officers to the point where if you hurt or injure one of them, you've hurt or injured a police officer, just like it's a human. That's the rules. So if they can't control it, I think there's a problem within your training, once again, within your police department. I want to quote from the Illinois Legal Aid Online, because they talked about what happens if you have a dog that bites someone, because dogs bite people. Regular people have dogs that they train and they bite people. So if your animal bites someone, you could be sued in both civil and criminal court. The injured person can sue you for any money they paid for your injuries. If you knew your dog was vicious or dangerous, if you knew your dog was vicious or dangerous and you failed to keep it locked up, which they did here, you might also be guilty of a felony. But the problem is the people who would be guilty of a felony here are the ones that are assessing the law that they may dole out to people.
Amazing, and man, I'm a first year law student, and we literally just learned about the prerequisites that you're talking about. If the animal has some level of aggression that you were aware of, and you did not take proper restrictions or create barriers to protect the public, then you are liable. Here's what's ironic. Because of qualified immunity, guess what? Police not liable. They're not liable because of the barrier that qualified immunity grants them. in cases like this. Unbelievable, but real. It's real.
Politicians like Mitch McConnell and all these Republicans that like to say they're protecting the police until white supremacist groups are the ones that are saying don't protect the police. They like to say things like qualified immunity is something that's absolutely 100% off the table in our negotiations for anything when it comes to reforming police departments or any of this, because it's just got to be there. But they never give a reason why it's got to be there. Every time they point it out, give them another instance of another story, such as this, where qualified immunity would completely exonerate them from normal responsibilities that you as a normal citizen who don't have the advantage of trained police dogs that you're supposed to handle. Yeah. You're just a schlep who's trying to be like Caesar Milan and train your Doberman, but he bit someone. You're in trouble.
Yep,
why is it that you don't get that same protection?
That's right. And ladies and gentlemen, just remember, for a police officer to tase their own canine, their own service animal for their unit, just imagine how long it took them to make that decision. Just imagine how much suffering and injury this teenager went through before that call was made, okay? Because they're more reluctant to shoot an animal than a black person. Believe that, all right? My big homie, thank you, brother.
I appreciate it, man. This is fun. Hey, you know what? Once I heard what's the Monday called? Big News Monday. No, it's Big News Wednesday on TDR. But Monday, it's Make It Happen. What is it? I gotta remember.
I just made something up. Make It Happen Monday, brother. I just made it up when I started the show.
Hey,
all right, we're gonna keep it now. Because you said something. All right, man. I know everybody knows you, brother, but tell people how they can follow you on social media and everything else.
I happen to get my name everywhere. Jayar, Jayar Jackson everywhere. Instagram, the Twitters, even the TikToks, even though I refuse to actually do anything on TikTok because I'm 41 years old, can't do that. Or else my kids probably gonna eventually discover that I'm dancing or something and they'll be mad at me. So we can't.
Yeah, I have a TikTok account, but I don't do anything on it.
Yep.
Right, yeah, okay. So we're in the same boat.
It's a placeholder.
There you go, exactly. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we got more on the other side. The Bullpen is next. Stick and stay.
We're very honest that we're progressives. We call the Young Turks home of progressives, and we support progressive candidates.
There has been this reemergence of political activism, especially among young people.
This weekend was the second Women's March, both across the US and across the world. So these people are not simply marching, they're not simply talking, they're also running for office. And when they do run, they're gonna make a difference.
Joe Crowley is congressman from New York. He's very powerful. Why? He raised a lot of money. But there's someone finally challenging him.
We need to have representation that advocates as fiercely for working class people as possible from this seat.
If candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even get a little bit of media attention outside of what the Young Turks does, they have an excellent chance of winning. She's gonna win, she's gonna win.
68% reporting.
The majority of Americans want Medicare for all. So I don't care what you and your corporate cronies want. What I care about is what the American people want.
We believe in total change. Everything runs on donor money. And that is what we will fight, and that is exactly why they don't like us. We're having fun, it's election night.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated Joe Crowley.
Here we go again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Crowley. Down goes Crowley. Down goes Manafort. Down goes Cohen. Women came out in record numbers in the primaries. They said you'll be lucky to get one candidate. We now have 12 that have won their primaries. Bezos and Amazon announcing that they are going to go to a 15-hour minimum wage.
We're making progress, let's keep going.
Many of these women made history.
The biggest victories, all women of color. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, Sharice Davids and Deb Haaland.
And I want to go to Congress because I want to change those things.
I'm calling it. Jamal Bowman has won. Down goes Engel. Down goes Engel.
For a long time, we have not had progressives in power. It's going to be something to behold.
Welcome to Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
let's look.
Flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word. Okay. This is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull piss.
Drink it, swallow it, spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this.
Cheers to Brett Ehrlich.
Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening?
No, that's just wrong.
Every way. And we'll see you next time.
Hey Dave, as you can probably see, Skype froze. Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Welcome back to Indisputable. I'm going to read some of these viewer comments. TYT member Eileen, middle-aged dragon mama says, I would say to Tucker, oh, your daughter is here? Can I show her some YouTube videos of you saying crazy things? Question mark. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, once again, happy birthday. I used to train dogs in obedience, not police dogs, and I've put a lot of obedience titles on big dogs. There is no excuse for police dogs to not disengage the second the handler orders it to. This happens far too often to be accidental. There's a lot. All right, Laurie Jones, thank you for that super chat. Bernard the Kiwi Dragon says, it looks like the dog received the same training as police officers. The only difference is the dog can't know any better than how it was trained. Correct. Return of the Ocean Dude Reno. The look on Tucker's face after that guy told him not to call him son and started moving towards him. Priceless. It was priceless, actually. D Valerie says, I'm glad that guy's encounter with Tucker was all captured on video because Tucker is a liar and a coward. He's just the type of Karen to pretend that guy assaulted him. And actually, when you look at the video, it was Tucker that created unwanted physical contact with the other guy. Tucker literally touched him first. All right, Nay Jelly Twitter, JR plus Dr. Richie, dynamic duo. Well, thank you for that. Yeetwood Mac, not Fleetwood, but Yeetwood. I like that. All right, seriously, how was this poor dog trained? They don't want to attack people. They want to listen to their handlers and do a job. WTF, training is this for a K9 unit? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. In the Bullpen today, we have National Review contributor, fee.org correspondent. We have Mr. Brad Polumbo. Good day, sir. Welcome to Indisputable.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Let's get right into our discussion. We're going to talk about formation of government and political and economic theory. So let's chop it up about socialism and capitalism. I don't want to presume what you believe about these two ideologies. So if you would, just give me some background to your belief in the structure of capitalism and the structure of socialism as political / economic theories.
Yeah, so free market capitalism, when the means of production are privately owned and businesses aren't dictated by government, right? And the market distributes resources. I believe that that's basically the most efficient that an economy can be run. And I think that from 1990 to 2015, we saw the global proliferation of free market capitalism and free trade. That corresponded with a 1.2 billion decline in the number of people in extreme poverty. 130,000 people rose out of extreme poverty every day. So that's why I think that global capitalism is the path to prosperity. Socialism, in contrast, has a much darker record, and that is when the government controls the economy and tries to centrally plan economic outcomes from the state.
Well, let me correct you on one point. Now, it is important to note that Senator Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Pat Toomey, they've all cited your work, many more. So you're well respected by those cats. Let me give you some insight to socialism, as well as capitalism. You would agree that when we discuss socialism and capitalism, these are constructs and primarily theoretical in belief. And then we get into nuance when we talk about the actual application of these forms, correct? You would agree to that?
Yeah, it's a scale. So the US is not fully capitalist or fully socialist. And with a few exceptions, most places are not fully one way or the other. So I agree with you.
That's correct. So let's talk about capitalism since you are a proponent of it. I hear the spin, the positives that people say capitalism creates. Capitalism also creates significant evils. We can look at the operation of slavery, which was all led and created because of a bottom line agenda. The agenda was free labor. And you can look at not only American slavery, but slavery across the planet had an economic core. And that economic core came from capitalism. Also, capitalism in a current context has led to significant inequity based on racial dynamics, market failure, damage to the environment, short-termism, excess materialism, and boom and bust economies that have lifted individuals up as well as put them flat down on their face. When you talk about a free market capitalistic society, you get to a place where now, if you're talking about free market without common sense government regulation, which is back to a socialistic ideology, that means that corporations can take advantage of individuals legally. That means that corporations can pay people $2.50 an hour because there's no regulation on the minimum wage. That means that child labor laws would be no longer in existence in a completely free trade market enterprise as you just described. So would you not agree that these social elements that are in place to regulate capitalism are in fact a good thing?
Well, let me break that up into two parts, because the first thing that you mentioned was slavery. Slavery was the most evil thing in American history. Horrible. Nobody who supports free market capitalism in the way that I do has any support for any sort of kind of thing like that. Because
but the capitalists back then supported slavery. That's my point to you. They were all capitalists.
Capitalism is not the same thing as blind pursuit of profit and wealth. Free market capitalism does require government, a government that protects people's rights from being infringed. It's when the market operates, but within a set of parameters, so that I can't force you to work for me. Key to capitalism is the idea of voluntary transactions. People only agree, I give you $5, you give me a 6-pack of Coca-Cola. It doesn't happen unless I agree to it and you agree to it. So slavery is not capitalism in the way that I believe in it, or anybody really in my movement believes in it. And so what we're talking about is voluntary transactions in a market, and those automatically leave people better off, because if they didn't, people wouldn't agree to them.
Okay, let me take you back to before our regulated minimum wage requirement in America. People were being used by corporations to increase their bottom line. That's why the American government got involved and said we need an economic floor called a minimum wage so that American citizens and beyond will not be taken advantage of. So when you say that this is all by way of an agreement, and because it's an agreement, it should then equate to a positive for both parties involved does not stand up to the historical record. The historical record is clear. Even when there is an agreement, you can have unequal bargaining powers in the agreement. As a matter of fact, in current American law, if you have unequal bargaining powers in any agreement under the current tort law system, the agreement can be overturned by a judge because of the inequity in the bargaining power. So just because an agreement exists, Brad, it doesn't mean that agreement leads to an equitable or even agreeable outcome for the person that signed the dotted line. Do you not agree to that?
It does mean that they are better off than if they didn't accept that deal at all, or they wouldn't accept it, as long as it's voluntary. If they're coerced, that is unlawful, and that's a different story. But let me touch on the minimum wage. You brought up the minimum wage, and it's
well, before you go to the minimum wage, let me say this. So you're telling me if we get rid of some of these marketplace restrictions and barriers, that if it's legal for a person to get paid $2 an hour for labor in America, and if they make that agreement, you're saying that that creates a composite positive, and that is a positive outcome because that person made the agreement and they're better off receiving $2 an hour. Is that what you're saying?
Well, nobody would because it's below the market rate, but yes, they're better off with $2 an hour than $0 an hour.
Now you're making an assumption that the alternative is zero. Here's the alternative.
No, the real minimum wage is always zero. It's unemployment.
Okay, listen to me, brother. I want you to hear this. The alternative to your scenario is to have a system that looks at the fairness and how it treats the human capital rather than the monetary capital. So while you have this scenario where, okay, well, $2 an hour is better than $0 an hour, okay? That's your scenario. My scenario is having a system that will not allow $2 an hour is better for the masses in this country than having a system that does. And we're talking about systems today. We're arguing systems.
Yeah, so the problem with how you're framing the system, I think, is that in order to not allow anybody to have less than $15 an hour, for example, because $2 an hour is below the market rate for labor. So even without any laws, basically nobody would work at that rate.
That's untrue.
$15 for an hour. In order to only allow people to work at that rate or above, you have to consign a lot of people to not working at all. It would eliminate millions of jobs, and the costs of it, of a $15 minimum wage, would be passed on to consumers via higher prices. This would also, and I know that you don't support this, right? This would help Amazon and the big corporations. If it was really a pro-worker policy to have a $15 minimum wage, why would Amazon be lobbying Washington to get it done? They know it will crush small businesses and hurt their competitors. It's actually crony capitalism.
Okay, so let me give you another example of where history has already proven you to be incorrect. The average for some agricultural farms in the United States of America of undocumented workers is between some $4 to $6 per hour. Now, you would argue with me that that labor is well below the minimum standard of what the marketplace demands. However, there are individuals who are taken advantage of because of their undocumented status. And if you go to a deregulated market, more of that will happen. Now, let me tell you what it would shift to.
Well, let me respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It would also shift to those who are who find trouble getting employment, such as individuals who have a felony on their record, they have served prison time, etc. So once again, if you get into a deregulated market, you have large demographics of the population who would be adversely affected by corporations taking advantage of the market, of the deregulated standard in the market.
Yeah, so let me respond to that because it's a very fair point, but that is a black market for undocumented immigrants. That's an illegal market. It's not a proper market. So give them all amnesty, for example, which I would support as long as they haven't committed any violent crime. And then all of a sudden they'd be able to work above the table and command much higher wages. They've done studies on this. If you gave them legal status, instantly all their wages would go up. It's not the free market, that's the black market, which is something very different. That's unlawful and under the table.
Let me respond to that, brother, cause man, I'm so happy you said that. You and I agree 100% on that point. I've advocated for years to literally legalize everybody. legalize everybody, because now you have competitiveness in the marketplace and you lift everyone out of that black market enterprise that you're talking about. The only issue I have with a purely deregulated free market industry is that, once again, individuals that are hard to obtain employment, people that find trouble obtaining employment, such as those who have had criminal convictions in their past, they will still be relegated to the lowest. We are already there where prisons literally pay these cats pennies to engage in labor that produces products for Fortune 500 companies. Is already here. And it is allowed under the 13th Amendment of the US Constitution, which basically allows for slavery in a different format. So you, as a libertarian brother, you have to agree with me on that point, that if you're going to go to a purely deregulated market where capitalism has zero to little regulation, you have to find ways to help make sure that populations like that are not taken advantage of.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you're looking for somebody to defend the prison system in the US, I'm not your guy. And using prisoners for cheap labor for companies, that's government colluding with big business. Yeah. That's not something that should exist in free market capitalism. What I'll say is this, though. In this kind of discussion that we're having, you're kind of assuming that the alternative to unregulated capitalism is regulated capitalism that's in the public interest, that's in the workers' interest. I would submit to you that much more likely regulations will be shaped by massive lobbyists, by special interests, and they will end up not often actually helping workers or the little guy, and will really be shaped by Washington. Why does Facebook lobby for new regulations? Because it knows that it can pay its lobbyists to write those rules in a way that actually helps Facebook. The government, here's the thing about capitalism and socialism. Self-interest and greed are part of human nature, but capitalism harnesses greed and self-interest to have people meet society's needs in a free market. Government, though, also has self-interest, and regulators and bureaucrats will pursue their own corrupt self-interest, not the good will of the people.
You know, you do make some decent points, but let me push back on why capitalism unregulated creates significant problems for the average person. Without the government oversight or government restrictions, you have increased usury. We don't have to project that as a possibility. We know it based on history. That's why governments got involved in the first place and said, we're going to have to regulate some of these markets and some of these enterprises. Now, when you look at socialism, for example, COVID-19 hit, right? COVID-19 hit, you had massive slowdown in the economy. Capitalism did not sustain people, it was socialism. The stimulus checks, textbook definition, socialist program. Agreed?
So I agree with you that the stimulus efforts were a big government socialist program.
Do you not? Oh, so you do agree that was a socialist program? So
definitely
it wasn't
leaning towards that side, but I oppose that program, and I can explain why.
All right, we'll get into that in a minute. K through 12 public education, socialist program. Medicare, Medicaid, socialist program. Social Security, socialist program. I can go down the list, brother, from benefits, SNAP, VA, and then I can get into the corporate welfare programs, socialist programs. And maybe you disagree with some of them just on face value of you being a libertarian. But think about this. The guys who are on your side, they're making a debate saying we need to get out of socialism, when in fact they take advantage of socialism in their corporate welfare tax programs, abatements, etc. So they say no for the individual, but yes to them as corporations. Go ahead.
Well, let me start where we agree. I oppose corporate welfare. Republicans are often hypocrites, supporting corporate welfare and then bashing welfare for other people. I oppose all of it. I'm very consistent. I'm happy to acknowledge that hypocrisy. But what you mentioned in terms of those programs are actually a prime example, some of them at least. Let's talk about COVID stimulus you mentioned. Okay. Of how actually the problem was not just COVID-19, it was the government lockdowns that created the economic depression. And then the stimulus programs, there's no such thing as stimulus because they can't create resources out of thin air. They have to tax or take away money from us on one hand to put it somewhere else on the other hand. And the government lost 5 times more money to stimulus fraud than it spent developing the COVID vaccines, at least 5 times more. That was not an efficient program. It didn't help people in the ways that it's often said to. In fact, they have MIT research about the Paycheck Protection Program that shows it was woefully inefficient. And these programs, I don't think they were nearly as effective. The stimulus checks were actually a tiny portion of that bill. Huge amounts of the money went to Wall Street and big corporations. So that was, I think, actually a good example of how big government programs end up being more corrupt than they are useful.
Now we're making an argument between execution and the idea. The execution was horrible, okay? The execution was not thoughtful. We were saying it during the execution of it, actually. I made a big issue about it even on my radio show during the time that it happened, because we saw elements like self-certifying. You remember they could self-certify who they were as a business, and then you have all of these individuals who were getting millions of dollars who did not deserve millions of dollars. Well, that's because they were allowed to self-certify. A big issue in that system, right? So now they're going through and they're finding all of this fraud, and people got money, and some of Trump's friends got money that never should have received that money in the first place. So that is an argument for execution, and I agree with you on that argument. But then on the other side, it is the actual idea, and the idea was, if we have unlimited money to kill people and blow things up, we call that war. If we have all of this money for defense contract spending and everything else.
Which I oppose.
And I know you do, as a libertarian, and you should, I oppose it as well. But remember, the people on your side of the Capitol debate, they're saying we have unlimited resources basically for all of these other things. We slowed down America and we slowed down the economy to save more lives. That's why we did that. I understand the value structure here. It was capital or people. The money should be used to help the government, to help the people who are governed, because they've been paying into the taxation system. And what is government supposed to do when there's a significant hit to the common person? They're supposed to get in and say, you know, all those taxes you've been paying, we're gonna put it to good work now. We're gonna put it to good use. So if it was executed better, would you have a better conclusion as to the program?
Yeah, look, if it was executed well, then I would have a different conclusion. But I would actually suggest to you that the execution and the idea cannot be easily separated, because the things that ruin the execution are things that are inherent to government intervention in the economy, like politicians being corrupt. We call this public choice economics. The kind of people that become politicians are corrupt, they're ambitious, they're self-interested. And moreover, we call regulatory capture. Whenever there's a big government intervention, the lobbyists shape it in favor of big businesses. Small businesses barely got anything, they got screwed. And what I would say is that it's not just the execution that always happens with big government. We see it time and time again, because it's a centralized group of people in Washington with power trying to plan a whole country. They're gonna make massive mistakes, they're going to botch it, and they're going to be heavily corrupted by outside influences. So you can't separate the execution from the idea, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do separate the execution from the idea, because if you say the idea is completely unusable, then I think that hinders us in the future. I'll give you one example. Less than 1% of small Black-owned companies got access to that same money, okay? Less than 1%. That's a damn shame. So granted, I can argue how shameful that is based on the structure and the execution. But I can also argue that if we have to do this again, damn it, you better make sure you structure and execute in a way where my brothers and sisters who own small companies who are Black and brown, that they get a piece of this American pie. So that's my argument to that. Let me ask you before you go, man, we got like 2 minutes. Are you a Christian?
No, sir.
Do you have an issue with Christian evangelicals who get involved in the Capitol debate, and they are contrary to a lot of what you believe as a libertarian, and they decide to back it up based on their Christian faith? I'm a Christian man myself. I just don't believe like a lot of those cats.
Yeah, look, I'm not a religious person myself, and I think secular policy debates should not really be shaped by religion one way or the other. But I do think that the free market capitalists, whether it's coming from religion or just the merits, are on the right side of this debate.
Yeah, very well said. Do you agree that capitalism should have common sense restrictions?
I think we disagree on what those should be, and I think they are much, much lighter than what you would imagine.
Brad, it's been fun, man. I'm out of time, but brother, I appreciate the
Thanks
open
for having
debate.
me, it was a blast.
Absolutely, man, we'll have you back on Indisputable. Thank you, brother. All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, make sure to take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of this planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.